Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the consideration of Agenda Item 9 as decided in our first plenary meeting. To articulate the consideration of the first part of this item, the Secretariat has compiled a list of speakers in accordance with Rule 35 and 36 of our Rules of Procedure. In order to ensure that all representatives wishing to take the floor are allowed to do so, I would like to remind the representatives that the Assembly has limited the time of speeches to a maximum of 3 minutes. I will repeat, maximum of 3 minutes for member states and 5 minutes for those who are speaking on behalf of groups or regional ministerial forums in accordance to Rule 38 or our rules of procedure. Please be aware that the microphone automatically cuts off after 3 minutes and a short period of grace. It is now my honor, therefore, to invite Ambassador Marta Juarez Ruiz, the head of delegation of Costa Rica, on behalf of the Minister of Costa Rica.
Thank you, Chair. Señor
President, allow me first and foremost to, as other distinguished delegations before me have done, extend our thanks and congratulations to Dr. Edgar Gutierrez, Minister for the Environment and Energy of Costa Rica, President of this Assembly of the United Nations Environment Programme. Please accept his apologies for not being present, as he had to attend to urgent presidential matters. We are aware that this has been a hard and complex task, but we can feel proud because thanks to our work together and thanks to the support of the Ministries of the Environment and the Secretariat of the United Nations Environment Programme, we have organized a substantive meeting which has benefited from a transparent, inclusive and innovative process. The Costa Rican presidency is delighted that good practices have been able to be established, which have enabled us to step up communication and cooperation between the bureaus of the Assembly and the Committee of Permanent Representatives. We're delighted that we've been able to contribute to the process of building trust between member states. We hope that this will continue in the future and be strengthened by the next presidency. In addition, my country is delighted that this Assembly has decided to focus its discussions on one of the most pressing sustainable development challenges, and that is moving towards a pollution-free planet. Costa Rica is a small, developing country. Many decades ago, it decided to set upon a path towards inclusive, sustainable development. This has focused on conservation, education, and the socio-economic and environmental well-being of its people. We decided to face up to the challenges of our development in an honest and responsible manner. We did this with a wide-ranging vision based on promoting human rights and the full respect for the dignity of human life. Thanks to this commitment, and to our decided ambition, we have placed ourselves at the forefront of climate action, and this year, for the third consecutive year, we have seen more than 100 days of electrical generation which has been 100% renewable. We also decided to revert the very high rates of deforestation from the 80s, and at present we now have 52% of our territory covered by forests. Our goal is to reach 60% coverage by 2050. We are working to move towards a fully carbon-free economy, and we are working towards being a carbon-free country by 2021. Although many challenges remain, we trust that we will be able to achieve these and many other goals. They are all necessary to ensure a better country for future and present generations. For these reasons, President, we believe in the need for this forum to move forwards in a decisive manner towards a pollution-free planet. My country decided to combat water pollution, soil pollution, and air pollution. We are part of the Clean Seas campaign, as well as the One Use of Single Plastic campaign, amongst others. And while we have seen positive results, much remains to be done. That is why we firmly believe in the need to transform our political commitment and will, which is being shown, into a concrete ministerial declaration. We need to see this document as an opportunity to keep moving forwards. Our work will not end here. It will continue further. That is why we call for this ministerial declaration to be adopted. We have to transform challenges into opportunities in order to ensure the transformation which all our countries need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Martha Ruiz, for her statement. May I now invite Excellency Sydney Alexander Samuels Wilson, Minister, Guatemala. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you. En nombre de la República.
On behalf of the Republic of Guatemala, I would like to extend our thanks to the government of the Republic of Kenya for the hospitality they have shown us. In addition, we would like to extend our congratulations to the Honourable President of the United Nations Environment Assembly, Minister of Costa Rica, Edgar Gutierrez. I would like to thank his team as well for their energetic and efficient management of this important event. Distinguished delegates, dignitaries and representatives before UNEA, I would also like to extend the warm regards of the Republic of Guatemala. The 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda sets out a clear path for us, with 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And in particular, as set out in its preamble, the clear aim of protecting the planet. In Guatemala, we have set out a political and legal framework in order to support our action. These include the framework law to regulate the effects of climate change and the mitigation of greenhouse gases. In this regards, we are strengthening our institutional capacity with various policies which have already been set out. One of these is the environmental education policy set out with the educational authority in Guatemala. And we are teaching our children in primary school about concepts related to climate change, the ozone layer, other topics related to the environment as well. We also have an agenda of strategic projects in order to face up to atmospheric pollution, soil pollution, and pollution in oceans and seas, as well as pollution in our water resources. That is why we have set out a bill for the comprehensive management of water resources in Guatemala, which recently received a favourable ruling from the Commission of the Environment of the legislative body of our country. This bill sets out regulatory bodies such as water catchment authorities in order to promote territorial governance for this vital water resource. Local authorities are key actors in the conservation and sustainable management of these resources to prevent their pollution. We should also highlight the installation of bio-wall systems, which we call them, which are low cost and easy to produce, in order to avoid solid waste reaching our rivers and seas. We've also set out a national programme of comprehensive management for the marine and coastal ecosystems based on a policy for their comprehensive management. We're working on legislation to control emissions of pollutants from internal combustion engines. In terms of multilateral environmental agreements, Guatemala has committed to many and is implementing action related to the CBD, Stockholm Convention, the Basel Convention, Rotterdam, the protocols of Kyoto, Cartagena, and Montreal with its Kigali Amendment, and is currently ratifying the Convention of Minamata. We hope to conclude this ratification during the coming year. We're doing this in coordination with producers and the productive sector in the country. We've also established proactive voluntary agreements with these sectors in order to lead the economic sector towards an environmentally sustainable and competitive business sector. All countries have a right to sustainable development in all its forms, but we will only achieve this
Thank you. Excellency. May I now invite Excellency Celestine Ndiazeye, Minister Burundi, to make his national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Honorable,
Distinguished Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the delegation of Burundi and in my own personal capacity, it's an honor and a pleasure to take the floor before this august assembly. To present to you the welcome of my country. It's also an opportunity to congratulate the government of Kenya for having accepted to organize this major meeting. And thank you for the legendary African hospitality which has been extended to us. I should like to state proudly that on the eve of the participation of the 23rd Conference of the Parties in Bonn last month, my presence there as minister responsible for the environment before the Burundian Parliament, which unanimously adopted the draft law on the ratification of the Paris Agreement, benefited both my country and all of the parties to the agreement. And I have arrived here in Nairobi just after the law was passed in my country. Furthermore, concerning our presence and the interest which we share in this meeting, under the leadership of UNEP, I would like to guarantee or to state to you that you have our support for the good of mankind. We want to fight for a world free of pollution. In our country, this has already become concrete by the planting of forests and trees following the signature of the Paris Agreement. 50 hectares per commune annually, for a total of over 2 million hectares annually. And this has a strong mitigating effect on pollution throughout our national territory. This is a result of the involvement of the highest levels of authority in our republic, including the President of the Republic himself. Contributions determined at a national level have already been presented and are being monitored carefully in the run-up to effective implementation through engaged cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, similar actions are being stepped up in my country. We have the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which is currently following the process for adoption and ratification. Initiatives to eradicate plastic waste, making space available for modern landfills, to manage solid waste, especially when it comes to recycling and so forth, including for the use and generation of energy. When it comes to the management of wastewater, we have significant legislation as part of our water and environmental codes, and these are tools which enable us to reduce the impact of pollution, generally speaking. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I should like to conclude by wishing every possible success to this session here in Nairobi. Long live international cooperation. May God bless you, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. May I now call on His Excellency Mr. Vidar Helgesen, Minister of Norway. Minister, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations Environmental Assembly is the leading platform on global environmental policy. And ahead of this year's assembly, we have been given a wake-up call. The Lancet Commission's report on health and economic costs of pollution makes clear that pollution is now the largest cause of deaths globally, responsible for some 9 million premature deaths. This tells us we need to step up efforts to tackle pollution. We need to do that also because that would be a fundamental contribution to achieving the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. The rapidly increasing levels of plastic litter and microplastics in our oceans is a global concern. Millions of tons of plastic waste flow around the oceans and are carried across the globe with the currents. This affects livelihoods. It affects ecosystems, and potentially it does affect human health. Combating marine litter is a key priority for Norway at home and abroad. We need specific actions on the ground locally and nationally at the country level, but we also need to get our act together internationally at the global level. There is a lack today of a coherent international governing framework to effectively address marine litter in a comprehensive manner. Norway believes that the United Nations Environment Assembly is particularly suited to address the challenge of marine litter and microplastics, and we've put forward a draft resolution on marine litter and microplastics. This resolution underlines my zero vision for plastics in the ocean and calls for more action both in the short and long term to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 14. Mr. President, antimicrobial resistance has long been on the global health agenda. The Frontiers 2017 report launched today demonstrates the role of environmental factors in the development and spread of antimicrobial resistance. Norway welcomes a holistic approach to ensure that antibiotics remain a common good for future generations. Working to improve the environment is fundamental to humans and to human rights. But many of those who stand up for the environment face serious risks. One environmental defender is killed every day. The international community cannot let this happen, and national jurisdictions should not let this happen. We need strong advocates for the environment. Partnership with civil society, indigenous peoples groups, academia, and the private sector is a prerequisite to reach the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. Mr. President, armed conflict and acts of terrorism cause grave damage to the environment. As states, it is our responsibility to protect the environment, to secure safe drinking water, access to land, and clean air. These tasks, and the many more in the environmental agenda, are difficult, and at times they can seem overwhelming. But we can accomplish them. We can accomplish them only if we act together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite Excellency Riyad Mouakkar, Minister, Tunisia, to deliver his national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President of the United Nations Environment Assembly, Your Excellencies, Ministers, Heads of Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, representatives of international organizations. Despite our international and regional efforts to combat pollution in air, water, and soil, the status of the environment is threatened and is deteriorating. Therefore, Tunisia reiterates its commitment to international efforts with a view to protecting Earth from pollution and to preserve ecosystems and natural resources. Our country has placed great emphasis on the protection of the environment. The Constitution of the Second Republic has reiterated the right to a clean, important protection of the environment is mainstreamed across our plans and strategies to protect the current and future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, my country has acceded to relevant international conventions on the protection of the environment and the human health, such as the Stockholm, Basel, and Montreal conventions. My country has also signed a Minamata agreement on mercury. My country has increased its effort to live up to its international obligations under these conventions. We have done away with the use of many chemicals and hazardous pesticides. These materials have been replaced with less hazardous material. We have also carried out an inventory of hazardous materials. We have also adopted a national plan on the implementation of the Stockholm Agreement. Our country has fully disposed of many hazardous materials, about 1,200 tons of vinyl, polychloride. We have also adopted a number of measures to put an end to the use of hazardous oils. And we have set up an integrated plan to recycle industrial wastes. We have also set up 2 plants for the stockpile of electrical and electronic wastes, as well as international and private wastes. Ladies and gentlemen, our efforts in the field of this sustainable development and the environment has been up to par. We have embarked on a number of programs and projects. We have also carried out a number of studies in order to carry out an inventory of the sources of pollutants and to carry out an assessment of these hazardous material. We have also shut down a number of pollutant plants. We have rehabilitated a number of them, reformed a number of polluted sites. The Tunisian government has this year decided to stop dumping wastes in the waste water in the Mediterranean. We have also embarked on a project to set up plants away from urbanized areas with a view to lessening the pollution of the cities. And in line with these efforts, we have also carried out a number of governance programs in the polluted areas. We have also provided incentives to the corporate sector in order to better manage the environment. And in order to alleviate the negative impact of industrialization on the country. We have set up a number of clean energy plants on water desalination and others. We're also monitoring the quality of air through a national network on monitoring the quality of air. The speaker is interrupted. Sorry.
Thank you, His Excellency. May I now invite Her Excellency Mrs. Edna Molewa, Minister, South Africa, to deliver her national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, the Executive Director of UNEP, all other Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Mr. President, pollution is a growing global challenge that affects all of us. It has severe socio-economic impacts on human and environmental health, as well as workforce productivity. Urgent action is required by all of us. As an international community, we are gathered here to discuss and decide on issues that define, in particular, the pollution dimension of a future global environmental agenda. Mr. President, as a responsible citizen, South Africa is committed to addressing pollution at an international, regional, and national levels. At the international and regional levels, we have ratified the Basel Convention, that's the Berne Amendment, and are right now the final parliamentary process of ratifying the Minamata Convention on Mercury and the Kigali Amendment of the Montreal Protocol and on HFCs, as well as the SADC Protocol on the environment. Mr. President, I must stress that if we indeed are to mobilize our collective best efforts to address the global pollution challenge, it is critical to secure means of implementation support for developing countries' action. At a national level, South Africa's constitution provides a legal obligation for government to ensure that the environment is safe and clean for all its people. The obligation is a core pillar of our National Development Plan that sets sustainable development targets to be achieved by 2030. In line with this National Development Plan, we have developed legislation, policies, strategies, and action plans in order to address air, land, water, and marine pollution. These measures prioritize and focus on the following. 1, the control of pollution sources, managing pollution from waste, managing and controlling air pollution, preventing and addressing marine pollution, and supporting voluntary industry and stakeholder initiatives such as Cosmetic Association Plan to phase out the non-biodegradable microbeads and cosmetic by the year 2020. Our national policy and implementation efforts are informed by best available evidence and research. We have established an academic research forum that's focused on priority pollution problems such as plastic pollution, as well as emerging pollutants of concern. Mr. President, in line with our commitment to concretely address the global challenge of environmental pollution, I'm honored and pleased to announce on behalf of South Africa that South Africa will be joining the UNEP Clean Seas campaign on marine litter aimed at fighting marine plastic litter, also partnering with Rwanda and Nigeria. We recently launched the Africa Alliance on Circular Economy, working with EU as well in that line, and this alliance will collaborate with platforms for accelerating the circular economy initiatives. At this point, I must express our concern with regard to our discussion here on the resolution dealing with armed conflict and terrorism. I must clearly state that there is no scientific established causal link between the environmental degradation and terrorism. We believe it is important for UNEA to remain true to its environmental mandate. In the same vein, Mr. President, we must be understood very well that we do believe that terrorism must be dealt with. There are, however, other international bodies mandated to address terrorism security issues, and work is ongoing, and we will support this work. As I conclude, Mr. President, I would like to reiterate our words when we say South Africa remains fully committed to reduce all forms of pollution, and we believe that we can achieve more by acting together. I must commend you, Mr. President, and the Bureau for your outstanding preparations for this meeting, and thanks to the government of Kenya and all its people for the work that they've done in preparing for us and the hospitality. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for the commitment also. May I now invite His Excellency Kimedo Dale, Minister, Ethiopia. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Vice President. Pollution is one of the greatest threats humanity has ever faced. Despite dozens of conventions and successive gatherings and also decisions by political leaders, scientists, and stakeholders, the health and ecosystem challenge posed by pollution could not be successfully addressed. If we keep doing what we have been doing over years, following the business as usual model, the result will be the same all over again at the expense of lives and livelihoods. Pollution prevention is a constitutional matter in Ethiopia. Article 44, sub-article 1 states, I quote, all persons have the right to a clean and healthy environment. Following this, my country has put in place domestic legislations and also ratified international conventions and agreements on pollution prevention and control. Adhering to these provisions, Ethiopia scores milestone achievement, especially in addressing air and land pollution. The Addis Ababa Light Rail Transit has brought honor to the city on the C40 Cities Award as it introduced carbon-neutral transportation system. Pollution has no boundary, Mr. Vice President. This is why Ethiopia believes in and advocates for cooperation and coordination at all levels for effective and efficient pollution prevention and control. Capitalizing on this, Ethiopia and Djibouti, in the spirit of brotherhood and cooperation, have launched the first fully electrified cross-border railway line in Africa. Mr. Vice President, striving to address land pollution, Ethiopia completed Africa's first major waste-to-energy facility at Rapi, designed to eliminate about 80% of waste from the capital city. The project, recognized by the United Nations Environment Programme, is the result of a partnership between the government of Ethiopia and a consortium of international companies from China, Denmark, and Singapore. Ethiopia, like any other developing country, is affected by pollution as a result of agricultural practices and hazardous chemicals from industries. We firmly believe that economic growth shall not be at the expense of environment. However, human and infrastructure capacities are limited to control these pollutions at different levels. Therefore, Ethiopia calls for international cooperation, partnership, and assistance to successfully address land, water, and air pollution in the country. Putting in place legislations or reaching consensus on text is important. However, the most important part is implementation. Colleagues, we need to act now. In conclusion, Ethiopia wishes to reiterate its unwavering commitment to work with the United Nations Environment Programme, global community, and our development partners to achieve a pollution-free planet for all. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, and thank you for keeping yourself within the 4 minutes. Again, for those who just came in, let me remind you that the microphone is shutting off exactly after 4 minutes. So please review your statement now, those who are going to speak, and make sure you keep yourself within the 3 minutes plus 1 minute to summarize or to recap, because automatically the microphone will shut off after 4 minutes. So let me now call on Her Excellency Mrs. Paula Cristina Carvalho Coelho, Minister of Angola. Her Excellency, you have the floor.
I thank you. Excellency, members of Presidium, Excellency, members and heads of delegation, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. On behalf of the President of the Republic of Angola, Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, we would like to congratulate the government of Kenya to a continuous leadership on environmental matters and host together the UNEA-3. Excellencies, pollution is a great challenge facing humanity at all levels, either rural or urban relation to transboundary nature of its cause and effects that have prompted government, civil society, the scientific community, and other actors to seek for a global response to this challenge. To a developing country such as Angola, pollution is being recognized as a matter of emergency and the need to prevent and mitigate quality of air, soil, health, and its impacts on daily lives of people and local communities. The need for all to act is urgent, and Angola is engaged on the approval, amongst other, a national plan on water quality, soil and air pertaining to pollution, where a platform of different stakeholders have been put into place. Angola is part of major environmental conventions. By that, UNEA-3 recommendations and decisions are a global response that must reconcile all historical responsibility for the dangerous concentration of greenhouses in the atmosphere and the need to ensure continuous progress towards poverty eradication, sustained economic growth, and sustainable development. The multilateralism has thus far proven as an effective and appropriate tool to build the necessary consensus to tackle pollution, either by using technology or sharing experience. As we progress towards a better quality of life, subjects such as marine conservation areas, ecosystem service, chemicals, dangers, and radioactive waste, industrialization, and ratification of the Kigali Amendment are continuously on top of the table as a priority. In that regard, we congratulate the Montreal Protocol for its 3rd anniversary. Angola, in particular, calls for an interactive action on these commitments. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the Republic of Angola recognizes that an action must be taken immediately. Pollution affects humans, particularly compromise the future generations. We are engaging on reduction of its impacts, amongst other, in the greenhouses. Excellencies, as we progress, many examples can be presented as good practice from all of us, but it's imperative that we tackle actions collectively on which each does its part, starting on assuming today the recommendations that are being decisions also from this UNEA-3. Allow me to finalize by calling attention that we only have one planet, one life, and we all can do better, characterized by a deep sentiment of solidarity to this planet and sharing a destiny. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. May I now invite His Excellency Pierre Simon George, Minister of Haiti. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, ministers of the environment, a world free of pollution was chosen as the main topic for this 3rd United Nations Assembly for the Environment this year, and is aimed at generating more tangible commitments to fight against pollution. For this scourge concerns all political decision makers and civil society active in the field of the environment and health. Close to 3 million individuals die every year as a result of air pollution. That's 5% of the overall number of annual deaths. Diarrhea kills 525,000 children under the age of 5. Mr. President, all of us know that the advent of the cholera epidemic has caused 9,300 deaths and over 800,000 infected individuals in Haiti. On behalf of the government of Haiti, I congratulate the former Secretary General of the United Nations for having recognized the UN origin of the epidemic and apologized to the people of Haiti. He said, and I quote, "On behalf of the United Nations, I wish to state clearly to you that we apologize to the Haitian people. This injustice caused by water pollution committed against Haiti, one of the world's poorest and most vulnerable countries in the world, has not yet been redressed." We know, however, that morbidity and mortality linked to pollution are both avoidable. And we are here to take decisions which clearly say no to pollution. Mindful of the impact of pollution on human health and on ecosystems, The government of Haiti is committed, under the aegis of the President of the Republic of Haiti, His Excellency Jovenel Moïse, to fight against pollution in all of its forms throughout his wide-ranging program, Caravan of Change. Within the framework of this vision, a number of activities have been implemented. We have the launch of the first Germoplasma Center last Saturday, with an annual production capacity of 4.5 million forest and fruit species. 3 more centers are currently being built, and 6 are being planned for 2018. This will enable us to work resolutely towards an irreversible reforestation of our country, the fight for the eradication of the cholera epidemic through a broad program for the capture and purification of water sources. We have the conduct of a survey on the management of hazardous chemical waste across 4 major cities in our country, the signature of an interministerial agreement protocol for the promotion of hygiene, sanitation, quality of life, a strengthened legislation on waste, through the adoption of the law which set up the National Service for the Management of Solid Waste, a law which was published on September 21st, 2017. The publication of a presidential decree which raised the autonomous National Agency for Protected Areas to the rank of a directorate. This decision allowed for the creation of 25 protected areas, including 11 marine ones. All of these actions are aimed at fighting against pollution to create a healthy and pleasant living environment. However, a great deal remains to be done, sir, to reduce substantially the impact of pollution on human health and the environment in Haiti. The management of waste is a concern for the government of Haiti. It is as a result of these considerations that the government of Haiti, which I represent here, takes advantage of this rostrum to call for states victim of pollution, such as Haiti, already so vulnerable in the face of climate change, be substantially assisted in restoring the environment. I would like to conclude my address with a quote from David Servan-Schreiber, which reflects perfectly the objective of the third UNEA, namely, one cannot live in good health on a sick planet. I thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Abdullahi Majid, Minister, Maldives. Excellency, you have the floor.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Mr. President, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. Let me first take this opportunity to express our sincere appreciation to the Bureau on their dedicated effort for the UNEA. I would also like to thank the UNEP and Government of Kenya for the excellent arrangements and the wonderful hospitality. Mr. President, the theme of UNEA-3 2017 truly captures one of the most pressing issues facing the world today. Pollution, in its various forms, threatens our environment and human well-being. From the impacts of pollution on our oceans, the land, and the air, there is no escaping this hard truth. Unless we take urgent action now, the problem will only amplify. Time and again, we are reminded that development and environment are not mutually exclusive terms. Indeed, it is imperative that we decouple development and resource use with environmental degradation. Concerted action on reducing and addressing pollution will be a critical part of this work. Though a small island state, we in the Maldives are firmly committed to do our part. At the UN Oceans Conference held earlier this year, we made a voluntary pledge to significantly and progressively reduce the use of non-biodegradable plastics in the Maldives. Additionally, we have already begun an initiative in collaboration with our fishing industry, whereby our fishermen would collect and bring back drifting plastics they encounter to the collecting vessels to be further taken to waste management centers. Mr. President, pollution both from marine and terrestrial-based sources has had a significant impact on our oceans, biodiversity, and ecosystem services. Across the globe, millions depend on the oceans and coastal environments for food and livelihoods. As an island state, this is no more so in the Maldives. Addressing marine pollution in Maldives begins with the sound management of waste. Indeed, SIDS have identified waste management as a priority sector for action within the Samoa pathway. However, with our scattered islands providing suitable, viable, and environmentally sound facilities for waste management is a highly challenging task. In addition to the numerous environmental problems, pollution also has very real impacts on health and well-being of our peoples. In Maldives alone, WHO estimates that 48 deaths are caused by air pollution-related complications each year. This is indeed a significant and an alarming figure, given the size of our minute population. The government is working towards addressing this issue, and we request support from partners in establishing adequate ambient air quality monitoring mechanisms, as well as assistance to develop the necessary technical and human resource capacity to this regard. Mr. President, pollution is a global issue, and as such will require global collective effort. The resolution of this August Assembly will no doubt further revitalize and guide the work. Through a collective effort and with participation from all stakeholders, we can indeed beat pollution. Let this not only be our pledge, but our legacy, vocation, and destiny. I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Cherenbat Namsrai, Minister, Mongolia. Minister, you have the floor.
Mr. President of the United Nations Environment Assembly, Mr. Executive Secretary of the United Nations Environment, Your Excellency and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for Mongolia to address its commitment and pledge to this third United Nations Environment Assembly themed on pollution-free planet. I take this opportunity to convey my sincere gratitude to the United Nations Environment for taking the lead on tackling all types of pollution and waste and promoting the synergetic and achievable approach in order to meet SDGs 2030. And deep appreciation to the President of UNEA for your excellent leadership and commitment. As one of the developing countries, Mongolia has been facing challenges, ups and downs, and affecting to the climate change and desertification, environmental pollution levels have been rising adversely, and its impact to environment, economies, social development, and health, and the well-being of the country and its people. In 2016 and 2017, the government, with support of national and international multi-stakeholders, developed its national program for reducing air and environmental pollution, and the Parliament of Mongolia approved the revised law on waste. Having implemented these two main documents, along with Mongolian commitment to the Paris Agreement, National Green Development Policy, and National Waste Management Strategy and Action Plan, Mongolia believes that the country would overcome the challenges and move forward to maintain the cleaner, healthier, and safe environment. Dear President, Mongolia has been promoting the synergies and inclusiveness policy coherence in its short, medium, and long-term policy documents, as well integrating to the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2030. Undertaking the key role of the multi-stakeholders commitment and partnership, Mongolia believes that all and any actions towards reducing the air and environmental pollution should based on social response of citizens, civil societies, and non-governmental organizations and private sector. On the other hand, the commitment of financial sector, private companies, and also the investment is critical to implement the ambitious targets and policies, which we would work more actively on to attract their more sustainability. The role of academia and science is no doubt essential as the pillar of state policy. The government will take all necessary and appropriate actions to strengthen the ties to achieve its commitment of implementation. The government of Mongolia reassures its commitment to implement the resolutions and decisions adopted here at this UNEA and to support initiatives, campaigns, those aimed to bring the healthy environment to the country and the planet. Mongolia is one of the first countries joined to the Breathe Life, and global campaign will take its utmost effort to implement and also hope to be a driver of the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Lloyd Kazia, Minister of Zambia. Excellency, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. The Executive Director of UNEP, honorable ministers from member states and governments, distinguished invited participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to address you on behalf of the people and government of the Republic of Zambia. My delegation is proud to be in Nairobi at this third meeting of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA-3. We are grateful to the UNEP Secretariat for the excellent facilitation. We are also thankful to Government of the Republic of Kenya for the warm welcome and hospitality accorded to us. Mr. President, it is a great honor to share my country's view on this important thematic area towards a pollution-free planet. Allow me to highlight Zambians' action and voluntary commitments to pollution reduction. It is a scientific fact that when pollution, in whatever degree, goes unchecked, it results into gradual degradation of the environment. Consequently, there is intolerable risks to human, plant, and animal life, which at very extreme end become irreversible. The advent of industrialization and other related human activities has resulted in pollution that has ultimately upset the ecological system. Globally, inadequately controlled technology has compounded the depletion of the natural resources as well as the ozone layer, whose total depletion may lead to extinction of all forms of life. This is a global concern, and in contribution to the solution, Zambia on the path to implement measures that will help reduce the rate of the ozone layer depletion. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, here is a brief breakdown of Zambia's approach to pollution control. 1. Policy interventions. The Zambian government has put in place a comprehensive national policy on environment that has domesticated a number of multilateral environment agreements, including UNEA, in contribution to eradicating poverty and improving the quality of life of the Zambian people. The policy provides for safety nets for development priorities. In this connection, some of the objectives of the policy are to, 1, develop a system and guidelines for environmental assessment, audits, monitoring, and evaluation so that the adverse environmental impacts can be eliminated or mitigated and environmental benefits enhanced. 2, minimize the adverse impact of climate change and reduce air pollution and greenhouse emissions. 3, manage the use of water resource efficiently and effectively. 4, involve stakeholders, including civil society, private and local communities, in environmental management and planning. Under the climate change policy, Zambia has submitted its nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement. Legislation. The Environment Management Act number 12 of 2011 is a principal legislation on environment, and it provides, amongst others, extended producer responsibility, integrated environment management, strategic environmental and social impact assessment, and sustainable utilization of natural resources. In our context, extended producer responsibility means actions that are extended a person's financial or physical responsibility for a product to be post-consumer stage of the product and includes 1. Waste minimization programs, 2. Financial contributions to
I'm sorry, His Excellency, the microphone is being shut off automatically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll read this again. In our context, extended producer responsibility means actions that extend a person's financial or physical responsibility for a product to the post-consumer stage of the product, and this includes 1. Waste minimization programs, 2. Financial contributions to any fund established to promote the minimization, recovery, reuse, or recycling of waste, 3. Awareness programs to inform the public of the impacts of waste emanating from product or on human health and the environment, 4. Any other measures to reduce the potential impacts of the product on human health and environment. With this understanding, Zambia is in a process of elaborating by statutory instrument measures to limit the control of production, transportation, and utilization of certain plastics. We are cautious not to comprehensively ban plastics. You may wish to know that Zambia environmental law recognizes other laws supporting sustainable development. National development planning, the 7th National Development Plan has outlined specific programs aimed at controlling pollution in the country. In all development plans, Zambia has focused on sustainable programming. Notable programs done under national development plans so far include the following: the Copper Belt Environmental Project, which is aimed at addressing historical mining liabilities in Zambia, Integrated Land Use Assessment 2, and the United Nations Reducing Emission from Deforestation, Forest Degradation, aimed at addressing forest climate change issues. Let me highlight some of the specific prominent interventions that have addressed pollution control in Zambia. Lead pollution in Kabwe cleanup. A long history of mining has left a legacy of environmental liabilities in a number of mining towns in Zambia. Amongst them is Kabwe town. Studies have revealed unacceptable levels, high levels of lead in soil as a result of lead mining in the area. Government is dealing with the identified dominant exposure pathway for lead, that is air, direct injection of soil and dust through surface and underground irrigated crops. Mercury pollution from small-scale mining activities. Zambia participating in regional project on the development of national action plans for the artisanal and small-scale gold mining. This project is aimed at assisting participating countries to develop national action plans for reducing use of mercury and mercury compounds in accordance with Annex C of the Stockholm Convention. As I conclude...
His Excellency, kindly summarize.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency, for your statement. I'm sorry for that. By the way, let me remind you that you can submit the longer version of your statement. You can submit that to the Secretariat, and we can upload it so that we can still record the complete statement of every member state. Again, I would like to say sorry. The microphone is being automatically shut down by the Secretariat. Again, let me now invite His Excellency Dr. Hars Vardhan, Minister, India. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me immense pleasure to be here in Green City in the Sun, Nairobi. I thank His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of Kenya, Dr. Edgar Gutierrez, Minister for Environment and Energy of Costa Rica, and the President of the 2017 UN Environment Assembly and UNEP for organizing this meeting. Friends, we are at a very critical stage in our efforts to combat environmental issues. Protecting Mother Earth is not just our political or social obligation, but it is our moral responsibility. This year's theme of UNEA-3 is Towards a Pollution-Free Planet, which needs collaborative and greater action. Scientific facts and figures clearly indicate that pollution causes impacts on human health and well-being and ecosystems of this planet, and it has long-term implications on sustainable developmental goals. We have only one planet, and our urgent collective actions are called for to ensure a healthy environment for present as well as our future generations. Today, there is a common acceptance that a healthy environment is necessary for eradicating poverty, taking into full account the legitimate priority and needs of developing countries and their rights to equitable access to sustainable development for the achievement of sustained economic growth and social progress. For this important deliberation, we must recall Mahatma Gandhi's words as guiding principles. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed, and be the change you want to see in the world. And such was his passion, vision, and understanding of the environment back in the days when nationalism overruled any global thinking, that his writings and thoughts are so relevant for almost all present-day environmental organizations, campaigns, and deliberations. We believe that the purpose of this Environment Assembly is to enhance cooperation amongst countries in order to strengthen and support the global response to the urgent threat of pollution. India has a long history and tradition of harmonious coexistence between man and nature. Human beings here have regarded fauna and flora as part of their family. This is part of our heritage and manifests in our lifestyle and traditional practices. Paris Agreement on Climate Change has also recognized the role of sustainable lifestyles and sustainable patterns of consumption and production in addressing climate change. India is committed to put forward and further propagate a healthy and sustainable way of living based on traditional values of conservation and optimal utilization of resources. Under the visionary leadership of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, we have launched many policies and institutional mechanisms related to food, water, and energy security, climate change, integrating 3 dimensions of sustainability and capacity enhancement at national and state levels. These initiatives are a reflection of our commitments to tackle pollution and health-related issues. Allow me to mention a few path-breaking initiatives. Swachh Bharat Mission, National Mission for Clean Ganga, which aims to clean Ganga, and then India's NDC Center around India's policies and programs on promotion of clean energy, especially renewable energy, enhancement of energy efficiency, development of less carbon-intensive and resilient urban centers, promotion of waste to wealth, safe, smart, and sustainable green transportation network, abatement of pollution, and India's efforts to enhance carbon sink through creation of forest and tree cover. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I shall further elaborate some of these initiatives and programs that have direct implications on air pollution, water pollution, marine and coastal pollution, and chemical and waste pollution. Air pollution, we are considering to shift to 100% electric cars by 2030. We also launched India's first National Air Quality Index in April 2015 in over 30 cities. The Graded Response Action Plan is being implemented earnestly and meticulously by the Central Pollution Control Board. Similarly, the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management has a vision and mission to aid in the better protection, conservation, rehabilitation, management, and policy design of the and demolition waste. India's largest waste-to-energy plant was launched at Delhi Narela in 2017 This project will use 2,000 metric tons of waste energy every day to generate 24 megawatts of energy. Friends, finally, given the commitments made under the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and other development agendas, India has been pursuing ambitious plans and expects actions from other developed and developing countries to fulfill their historic responsibility.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, thank you. Again, let me tell you to please submit the long version. We want to record all your statements as much as possible, so we would need the copy of the long version of your statement, because I believe when the microphone is cut, it is not recorded anymore. So I would suggest that we still get your statement by submitting to us the long version so that we can upload it in our website. Thank you very much. Let me now invite His Excellency Mr. Socrates Famelios, Alternate Minister, Greece. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dear colleagues, dear Excellencies, UNEA-3 offers an excellent opportunity to address pollution as an environmental challenge with a social and economic dimension. Pollution is connected with human and mainly economic activities, but economy should not be considered as an enemy of ecology and environments. There are ways to achieve prosperity and growth other than the conventional growth model that is based on overconsumption and overexploitation of natural resources, that consume vital assets and create waste at the expense of the environment and next generations. Economy and environment are not opposite concepts. Likewise, entrepreneurship and climate policies are not opposing concepts, as poorly translated at the other side of the Atlantic. These are common roots, and states have both, from business and environmental point of view, as well as for moral reason, to reconsider their decision of leaving the Paris Agreement and rejoin us, the rest of the planet, in the efforts to fight climate change. Both for climate and to prevent pollution, we need to act now, based on a circular economy model, and use our knowledge not with the sole purpose of increasing profit, but the overall benefit of the society and the planet, taking into account the external cost. Pollution is not politically neutral. It has a strong political aspect. It is connected with the lack of environmental control, the lack of social justice, and the redistribution of wealth. Quite often, the predominant economic policies target unilaterality, fiscal stability, and forget all the other dimensions of SDGs. Another political reading is that rich people and wealthy states have to contribute to tackling pollution that has very often been created by their business in developing countries and generally in all the countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to raise the priority of the environment in public policy, linking it to all thematic policies, thinking globally. It is equally important to address local and global issues of pollution with more social justice and the redistribution elements by the wealthiest classes and the richest countries to the poorest one, since those parts of the world's population are also more affected by pollution and climate change. It is imperative to focus first on prevention than on corrective actions later on. They cost much more and deliver worse. The polluter pays principle must be widely applied. The extended producer responsibility schemes take this notion a further step forward, as it ensures that the producers are responsible for organizing the management of the waste produced. Furthermore, we could see how to best align policies for sustainable industrialization to remove barriers from the transport and use of secondary raw materials, as well as support the integration of recyclable materials and circular economy models as means to promote resource efficiency and pollution prevention. The EU has a large toolbox of legislative measures for pollution prevention that could be used as examples to show the way forward at the planning level, the operational level, the organizational level, even at the level of consumption and monitoring. Another issue I would like to raise is the need for transparent, fair and inclusive environmental governance processes. To achieve this, we need a transparent, equal and fair treatment of the citizens and the economic operator. Environmental policy needs credibility in the society. We must promote ownership and stewardship. All of us should feel responsible and accountable. Only this way we can hope to change behavioral patterns and unsustainable habits. And of course, to strengthen awareness and education, particularly for the youth, and local initiatives to further employment in the pollution control and prevention. Each country must undertake voluntary initiative to address pollution. That's why Greece, even with a difficult economic situation, participated in initiatives to confirm through the connection with electric grid of the main islands, and of course, to air pollution and incidents of accidental marine pollution. To beat pollution, we must be all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Jochen Plasbart, Vice Minister, Germany. Excellency, you have the floor.
President, colleagues, this year's anti-pollution summit demonstrates impressively that we need to take better care of our planet. Visible and invisible environmental pollution affect us all. It endangers our health and jeopardizes the foundations of our lives. In addition to this, environmental pollution is an issue of equity. Between countries and inside countries, it is the poorer and the disadvantaged that continue to be hit hardest. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that there is a momentum to take ambitious measures at local, national and international level. It is a matter of modernizing our infrastructure in an environmentally sound manner and ensuring production and lifestyle become more sustainable. We policymakers need to see to it that ambitious environmental standards are implemented and that ambition will increase over time. That compliance with these standards is monitored and that the precautionary principle is taken seriously, and finally, that the voice of the public, the civil society and NGOs is heard. Colleagues, I'm delighted that Germany is also able to contribute to this anti-pollution summit. For instance, we organized just recently, as you know, COP23 of the CCC in Bonn in a way that ensured waste and pollution were kept at a minimum and that unavoidable greenhouse gas emissions are offset. We intend to host the International Nitric Oxide Conference in 2020, and we will support the 6th International Marine Debris Conference in 2018. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to announce that Germany will contribute with another 13 million euros to the UN Alliance page for the vital work of the United Nations on greening our economies. In addition, we are providing financial aid to the newly established International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center in Bonn. We are planning to use funds from the International Climate Initiative to promote projects. Just to name two examples, it's the two projects in the areas of sustainable transport and climate and environmentally friendly cooling processes with a funding of up to 20 million euros each, respectively from 2019. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the clock, I don't see it, but I have the brutal example just prior to that. Finally, I want to call upon all parties to accept the ministerial declaration as it has been drafted. Now it has been drafted in a very careful way by our teams, and I think we all want to avoid another experience as we had at the last UNEA, so please be flexible and let us adopt the ministerial declaration. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, His Excellency, and thank you for your support. May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Mohammed bin Salim Al Tobi, Minister, Oman, to deliver his national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي رئيس الدورة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، الحضور الكرام، يسعدني.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the participants. First and foremost, on behalf of the delegation of the Sultanate of Oman, I would like to thank you and to extend our gratitude to UNEA for the efforts which they have conducted in order to discuss the priority issues which we face in terms of pollution on our planet. I'd like to pay tribute to the efforts made by the Executive Director of UNEP. I would wish him every success in his work. Ladies and gentlemen, environmental issues, and in particular population issues in all their forms, have arisen over the past few decades and have become one of the greatest challenges we face. These are great concerns, and we need to come together in order to implement the reforms needed at a political, legislative level in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sultanate of Oman, under the aegis of His Majesty the Sultan, has chosen to undertake sustainable development, taking into account the need to protect the environment, to reduce pollution, and to safeguard natural resources. Along these lines, His Majesty has taken the decision to discern or provide an environmental prize to recognize efforts made in this regard. Our country assigns the greatest priority to these issues and wants to strengthen technology transfer under all its forms and the fight against pollutants with the creation of new clean technology which does not damage the environment. The Sultanate of Oman has also ratified all texts and international instruments in this area. The Sultanate has also implemented a legislative framework to protect the environment, to combat pollution, and to ensure sound governance of air, land, water, marine environments, and the sound management of chemicals. We have also stepped up our efforts to monitor the environment. The Sultanate has also made investments to strengthen cooperation between the private and public sectors. We have done this in the field of waste management, in terms of fostering renewable energy projects as well, amongst others. Thank you very much.
May I now invite His Excellency Dr. Esteban Nagy, Vice Minister Hungary, for his national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Tisztelt elnök úr, hölgyeim és uraim!
As President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am honoured to represent the Hungarian government at the 3rd UN Environment Assembly and welcome that it is dedicated to tackling pollution. The key objective of Hungary's environmental policy is to ensure that the economic development of the country is carried out with the preservation and sustainable utilisation of natural resources and values. Let me mention some of our waste prevention and reduction related measures, which are also part of our UNEA-3 commitments, complementing the ones submitted jointly by the European Union and its member states. I wish to start with awareness raising and education examples, since they are key in ensuring understanding of everyone's role and responsibility in contributing to the betterment of the environment. We plan to extend the successful Heat Wisely information and awareness raising campaign, since improper residential heating is nowadays the biggest source of air pollution. We will also continue the Pick It Up voluntary waste collection campaign for a clean Hungary. In support of sustainable transport development, we plan to strengthen such campaigns like Car Free Day and Cycle to the Workplace. We strive to establish all-level education for a sustainable development system based on our successful eco-school and green kindergarten network. Due to the geographical location of Hungary, international cooperation on transboundary environmental issues is of particular importance for us. We play a proactive and active role in this area, inter alia, through our current presidency of the Helsinki Water Convention and the Carpathian Convention. Hungary will complete the ratification of the 3 most recently amended protocols under the Geneva Air Pollution Convention. We are fostering the development of the Tisa River Basin through the cooperation of the 5 riparian countries, including through prevention and control of the transboundary impacts of water pollution. In order to improve the quality of data collection and monitoring, we are further developing our state environmental and water laboratory framework, enhancing e-mobility as part of the Hungarian government's energy efficiency improvement plan for transport services. Due to stricter regulations, the free distribution of plastic bags has decreased significantly, and further reduction is expected. To further reduce the amount and risk of deposited waste, we will broaden the door-to-door selective waste collection system. Finally, an example from the food and agriculture sector. We have increased the share of local farmers in the local food supply. As a result, transport needs and related pollution has been reduced. This measure also supports local jobs and the reduction of food imports. Ladies and gentlemen, we are facing numerous environmental, social and economic challenges in the world and in Hungary. Coping with them requires responsible thinking and joint action at all levels. Let's take further steps towards this by adopting the Ministerial Outcome Document and the resolutions of UNEA-3 and implementing them together with our national commitments. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, His Excellency. May I now invite Dr. Hassim Al-Muhammadi, Vice Minister, Iraq, to deliver his national statement. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. أصحاب المعالي، السيدات والسادة، أعضاء الوفود الموقرين، السلام عليكم. باسمي ونيابة عن حكومة جمهورية العراق.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Republic of Iraq, I would like to pay tribute to you and to wish you every success faced with all of the environmental issues we face across the planet as a whole. And in terms of achieving the SDGs, the delegation of my country would like to join others, such as Pakistan and the group of G77 and China, in their statements, and also like to join our voice to that of the Sultanate of Oman. We would like to thank UNEP for the efforts they have made in organizing this conference, in particular given the national environmental challenges whose harmful effects affect not just the environment but society as a whole and vulnerable communities. It also affects biodiversity with the increasing effects of climate change, droughts, desertification amongst others. We need to come together in order to face up to these challenges and in order to ensure progress so that we can achieve the SDGs and combat poverty in rural areas in particular. We also need to do this to ensure a dignified life for all, especially for most effective communities, and make them more resilient in order to face up to environmental challenges which are vast. We need to come together, in particular given terrorist activities in certain countries. Terrorism has targeted environmental areas as well and increased or added to the harmful effects of climate change and pollution. Iraq considers one of the 5 most vulnerable countries to climate change in the world, according to the GeoCities classification. We have seen a new migration, that is climate migration, due to this. And this affects most foremost all these most vulnerable cities and countries. But Iraq is carrying out efforts in order to mitigate the effects of this, to ensure a sustainable environment and to create sustainable living conditions for its people. We have adopted 2 main priorities on the environment of our country. That is the environment and the environment in relation to security. We've been reducing pollutants, but we are still seeing ecological disasters in our countries, threatening agriculture and food security. The Iraqi government has also pushed forward a draft resolution on controlling pollution in countries affected by terrorism and armed conflicts. We support vulnerable countries, and we call on you all to face up to the greatest threat to humankind, that is climate change. Vulnerable countries are threatened with desertification, drought, storms, sandstorms, amongst other phenomena, and threats to food security, not to mention climate migration and other environmental issues. We call on the entire international community to support these most vulnerable countries. We hope the UNEA-3 will be a great success and that we will be able to produce resolutions that enable us to have a clean and sustainable environment for all, while contributing to supporting those most affected. My government calls on member states to provide urgent assistance so that we can face up to these environmental issues. Thank you.
Let me now invite Dr. Kabe, His Excellency Dr. Kabe Madani, Vice Minister, Iran. Excellency, you have the floor.
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Mr. President, Executive Director of the UN Environment, honorable ministers, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to express my profound gratitude to the people and government of Kenya for their hospitality. I also like to acknowledge the initiative of the UN Environment for orientation of this meeting towards a pollution-free planet. This theme is indeed in line with the national environmental priorities set by our Supreme Leader and President Rouhani's environmental roadmap that is focused on 4 pollution-related topics, namely air quality, sand and dust storms, wetlands, and waste. Excellencies, about 7 million people around the world are losing their lives annually due to air pollution, and that not only affects human health, but also impacts economy and productivity. At the same time, sand and dust storms, as one of the most significant but overlooked environmental problems of the 21st century, is imposing harmful effects on health, livelihood, food security, biodiversity, and ecosystem services, and is causing migration and relocation of people. Drying wetlands, lakes, and water bodies as a result of short-sighted development plans and aggressive water withdrawals is a serious challenge of many developing countries and one of the major causes of the increasing sand and dust storms around the globe. Waste in various forms is now damaging our health, ecosystems, and oceans. In addition to plastic, the issue of e-waste is another major pollution problem with unknown long-term impacts and that requires our immediate attention. Mr. President, these issues constitute the 4 current environmental priorities of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we welcome international and regional cooperation to tackle them. We strongly believe in the fact that environmental problems are transboundary and transgenerational and need to be solved through effective international cooperation mechanisms that are fair and not hampered by economic sanctions and politicization. Distinguished colleagues, earlier this year, and in close collaboration with the UN Environment, we hosted the International Conference on Combating Sand and Dust Storms in Tehran to address its challenges and implications on biodiversity and human livelihood. I would like to emphasize on a need for a global response to the issue of sand and dust storms through an international and UN system-wide action to address the major environmental challenge of the 21st century, which we are not yet prepared to properly cope with. In this context, Iran recommends the implementation of paragraph 4 of the resolution on combating sand and dust storms, which has been approved by the Second Committee of the General Assembly in its 72nd session. Ladies and gentlemen, we highly appreciate the efforts of the Third UN Environment Assembly to recognize and identify the means to tackle pollution challenges. Nevertheless, let's not forget that the real challenge is in the effective implementation of the recognized solution. We need to bridge the huge gap between science and policy and develop effective solution mechanisms that are financially and socially sustainable and involve the private businesses as well as civil societies. With no doubt, my government remains committed to providing full support for the successful implementation of the outcomes of this meeting towards the global peace, security, and sustainability. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Excellency. May I now invite His Excellency Thierry Dicu, Vice Minister, Argentina. We will call him later. May I now call on His Excellency Mr. Javier Garcia de Viera, Head of Delegation, Spain. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente de la
President of the Assembly, Executive Director of UNEP, Ministers, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, and before I begin my statement, I'd like to say to this Assembly that the Secretary of State for the Environment of Spain profoundly regrets that he could not be here today, as was announced previously. Spain is undergoing intense drought, and this has become particularly severe over the past few weeks. The intense work being carried out by the government in order to face up to this delicate situation includes the implementation of new emergency measures and the creation of a emergency measures law in order to face up to the effects of this lack of rain. This has meant the Secretary of State has not been able to come to Nairobi. On his behalf, I wish you every success here, and I pass on to you his warm regards. I will now give you his declaration, which is given on behalf of our government. The report drafted for UNEA-3 and the Executive Director have both said it. Pollution is one of the greatest challenges which we face. A global issue which affects the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the health and well-being of people, as well as having considerable economic effects. Therefore, the theme of this meeting is towards a pollution-free planet. This theme is in line with priorities of the government of Spain, which is adopting all necessary measures in order to meet the SDGs set out in the 2030 Agenda, which are essential in order to achieve a pollution-free planet. Spain has therefore implemented, amongst others, an air quality plan, plans to protect the environment and the climate, to reduce atmospheric emissions, a state program to prevent waste, which aims to reduce the volume of solid waste created, a growth measures plan for competitiveness and efficiency, whose aim is to improve the treatment of urban residual water waste and the quality of water. In addition, the government of Spain is working on a Spanish strategy for circular economy, whose aim is to promote a transition towards a development model which is sustainable and which enables us to make the most of our natural resources while reducing the generation of pollutants. We are working, therefore, to improve the quality of life of our citizens. The reduction of pollution levels is an essential goal. Therefore, the Spanish government aims to reduce this as far as possible, both in the air, in soils and water. To achieve this, we are working in a coordinated manner with all other authorities in Spain and with society as a whole. We will do so in line with the goals established by the European Union and acting on all sources of pollution which emerge from human activity. We are convinced that the protection of the environment is necessary and essential for economic and social development of the global population. Here and now, we would like to reiterate our commitment to fighting against pollution and our will to collaborate with others to ensure an ambitious action at international level in order to broach these issues. In this regard, Spain is supporting the ministerial declaration which the President of UNEA has led in a transparent and inclusive manner. We are sure that this UNEA-3 will be a success and will strengthen the coordination of countries and all stakeholders involved in the fight against this challenge. Thank you very much.
I thank you, Excellency, for your statement. Now it's my honor to invite next speaker, His Excellency Thierry Decaud, Vice Minister for the Environment of Argentina. Excellency, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente.
President, distinguished ministers and delegates, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here today for the first time representing the Argentine Republic. Our country is undergoing profound change, a process of change towards more efficient, more responsible and more transparent management. Within this context, we highlight the need to be part of the international community. Therefore, we've once again placed Argentina within the international community. Today we have the great commitment and honour of going through the rigorous process of acceding to the OECD, presiding the G20 and the Forum of Ministers for the Environment of Latin America and the Caribbean of UNEP. As a government, amongst other priority measures, we are pushing forward progress in human rights and the peaceful settlement of disputes. We're focusing on eradicating poverty and ensuring equality of opportunities, in particular paying most attention to the most vulnerable. But we understand that none of this is possible without a healthy environment. Therefore, we are setting out substantial reform in Argentina, a new law on hazardous waste, which promotes its comprehensive management and which aims to manage these sustainably. Also, a polluted sites law, which sets out a national fund and tools in order to promote investment for sanitation, a law for the extended responsibility of producers, and a new normative framework. All of this to ensure the correct management of resources, because this is at the origin of many of the environmental issues that we face. We highlight the need to eliminate exposure to lead batteries and paint and strengthen our commitment to attack issues such as polluted sites, maritime waste, water and air pollution, biodiversity. We're committed to promoting a paradigm shift in productive systems and human activities in order to become closer to naturally occurring cycles. We're delighted that the focus of this meeting is pollution, and that we're focusing on broaching these issues with regards to environmental quality and natural resources. We have realized that efforts and resources need to be the first link in the chain in terms of prevention, environmental management, which is efficient, of chemicals and hazardous waste, and mitigating pollution. In Argentina, we've seen firsthand the effect of a lack of care of the environment, which we've seen globally for years. Now we need to work together to do the right thing, bringing our creativity to bear to find concrete solutions. We know this is difficult, but together we believe we can achieve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now I have a pleasure to invite Madame Nassere Kaba, Head of Delegation of Cote d'Ivoire. Madame, the floor is yours.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of the protection of the environment has become a priority issue insofar as nature itself sends us strong signals, as if she was trying to tell us, stop, this is it, there are limits not to cross. We have the rising sea level. We have acid rain, inundations, floods, to list but those. All of these call for changes in our modes of production and consumption. A number of initiatives at the international level have clearly demonstrated that there is growing awareness, including the Sendai Action Compact, the Paris Agreement, the 2030 SDG agenda, and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank UNEP for its support. Following the discharge of toxic waste in Abidjan in 2006, this has led to an audit of the sites impacted by this discharge and has shown that the cleanup effort was in keeping with international standards and norms. We also have the post-conflict environmental costs, the results of a decade-long war in Cote d'Ivoire, civil war in Cote d'Ivoire. The fight against pollution in my country has led to the setting up of an institutional and legal framework through the creation of a national pollution monitoring centers, which were created in 1991, aimed at assessing the quality of the work carried out. And we have the emergency response centers for oil and gas spills. We also have the ratification of a number of international agreements on the protection of the environment, the adoption of legally binding instruments, including the Environmental Code and its implementation, code, and the ban on the import use of plastic bags, the decree on the environmental study on any developmental projects, the adoption of the law on the management, protection of the coastal areas, and management program for coastal areas and maritime areas around Abidjan, as well as setting up of a framework for dialogue between the private sector and the state, as well as awareness raising at the level of economic activities. Ladies and gentlemen, I call for greater responsibility to be shown to set up a harmonious relationship with Mother Nature, without which our very survival is threatened. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. May I now invite, next on our list is His Excellency Mr. Vo Duan Nan, Vice Minister of Vietnam, but due to some current problems with voice, I invite on his name Director General for the International Cooperation Department, Pham Phu Binh, to present this national statement. Mr. You have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege for me, on behalf of the government of Vietnam, to attend the third session of the UNEA. I would like to sincerely thank the UN Environment for inviting our delegation to this important event, and together with the government of Kenya for their excellent joint arrangement for this important conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is facing enormous intertwined challenges of climate change, pollution, environment degradation, and natural resources and biodiversity depletion, while bringing about the much-wanted development. Rapid economic growth in the context of these challenges is creating even more challenges to the sustainable development of Vietnam, as well as for many other developing countries. In responding to these challenges, and in order to transform our development model towards more sustainable, Vietnam has issued a number of important policies, namely the Strategy on Environmental Protection, the Strategy and National Action Plan on Green Growth, the National Action Plan to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, the Strategy and National Action Plan on Climate Change, and the Strategy for Renewable Energy Development. In accordance with these strategies and plans, Vietnam is strongly promoting sustainable economic development in close connection with environmental protection and pollution control, with a resolute commitment not to compromise the environment in exchange for short-term benefits. And environmental protection, pollution prevention, and control must be taken into consideration during the whole development process. At the national level, Vietnam is stepping up its economic restructuring and institutional arrangement, facilitating real development, efficient use of energy and resources, and mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutions. Our aim is to raise people's living standards, promote an environment-friendly lifestyle, and improve competitiveness of the economy through investing in measures such as technological innovation, natural and human capital. We are committed to work closely with our regional partners in making greater efforts to address urgent issues of regional dimension, including air pollution and water resources management, with concrete regional action for an environment-friendly and peaceful region. We are also committed as a responsible partner to join our global efforts with international community in addressing global challenges through bilateral, multilateral, and international cooperation mechanisms so as to join hands for a pollution-free planet. With a spirit of cooperation, friendship, and solidarity, Vietnam believes that the third UNEA will be successful in attaining our joint objectives. Vietnam is looking forward to closer cooperation as well as further support to realize the outcomes of our meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your statement. May I now invite Mr. Karma Tsering, Head of Delegation of Bhutan. Sir, you have the floor.
Mr. President, Executive Director of UNEP, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to deliver this country's statement on behalf of my minister who had to cancel his trip at last hours. For this, we would like to apologize. This morning, we had heard a very, very inspirational and very encouraging statements from many of the leaders. It is indeed a testimony for all to show the country's seriousness towards the environmental concerns. The Kingdom of Bhutan is a mountainous and landlocked country with small scattered population who are dependent on the natural resources, forests, and environment. Our 5-year development plan, which is guided by the principle of gross national happiness, is based on the premise that the true development can take place when social, economic, cultural, and environment well-being occur placed side by side to complement and enforce each other. Mr. President, this year's theme towards pollution-free planet is very timely when many of the developing countries are faced with serious issues of air pollution. For instance, we are all aware that air pollution is one of the serious and world's single largest environmental killer, causing 7 million deaths each year. This is also stated by the Executive Director this morning. Air pollution is becoming one of the emerging issues for Bhutan. Its quality is deteriorating, particularly in urban centers and industrial areas. We are seeing increasing number of patients from respiratory diseases and air pollution-related diseases. Royal Government of Bhutan is taking numerous initiatives for cleaner air. This include development of low-emission development strategies for transport and industry sector, roadmap for controlling vehicular emission, including promotion of electric vehicle, implementation of air quality standards, and improved data management system. We have strong political will, but we do lack fund, technology, and technical experts. With support from our developed partners and international communities, we can assure our sincere effort to bring down this environmental killer, the air pollution. Mr. President, the experience worldwide has shown that climate change is hitting mountain ecosystem. Biodiversity is eroding, and farmers are suffering from loss of crop harvest due to erratic weather patterns. I call on distinguished delegates to support discourse on mountain ecosystem under the 3 Rio Convention and harmonize activities of the 3 Convention, since at the end of the day, all the actions has to converge. And this is in line with the press release of 3 years of Rio Sister Convention at COP23 in Bonn this year. We have committed to remain carbon neutral, state way back in 2009 at Copenhagen in COP15. We have launched Bhutan for Life on November 11, 2017. Bhutan for Life is an innovative financial mechanism to finance protected areas in permanence, and it is first of its kind in Asia. We hope it is going to be a model for rest of Asia Pacific countries to follow, so that our regional healthy ecosystem and rich biodiversity are conserved and sustainably used for many years to come. Mr. President, the figures we have for the consumption of natural resources are alarming. Our action must shift to sustainable practice. Promoting sustainable consumption pattern and mainstreaming environmental issues into policy making can help achieve the shift. Bhutan has initiated several initiatives, and we are moving towards ensuring sustainable consumption and production.
Okay, so time is finished. Thank you very much, sir, for your statement. Now I have the honor to invite His Excellency Ahmad Mohammad Al-Sada, Assistant Under Secretary of Environment Affairs of Qatar. Sir, you have the floor.
In the name of God, the most merciful, most compassionate, Mr. President, Excellencies, may the peace and the blessings of God be upon you all. It is my pleasure to avail myself of this opportunity to thank UNEA for all the efforts that it has been making. I also would like to thank the government and the people of Kenya for the generous hospitality and warm welcome. I also would like to thank His Excellency Dr. Edgar Gutierrez, Minister of Environment in the Republic of Costa Rica, for his efforts during his tenure as President of UNEA. Mr. President, our presence here under the auspices of the United Nations is a proof of our commitment, as our conviction as an international community to work together to protect and preserve the environment for the benefit of current and future generation. We do believe in the importance of cooperation to face all environmental challenges at all national, regional, and international levels. This can be done through the development and implementation of strategies, initiatives, plans, and other programs to meet the environmental objectives among the international sustainable development in line with the circumstances in each country in a way to respect the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities. This is aimed at preserving the environment for a better and more sustainable future. Mr. President, I also would like to commend all the efforts under the slogan pollution-free planet. This is a major commitment to preserve the environment and combat pollution. It is important to preserve this planet. We also express our support for the declaration of this assembly that focuses on fighting all forms and manifestations of pollution. Ladies and gentlemen, in Qatar, and bearing in mind the importance to contribute to international efforts in fighting all sorts of pollution and to alleviate its impact on our planet, we have been in line with all efforts that preserve the environment in our economic policies and plans. It is important also to carry out environment-friendly strategies. This is indeed part of our national vision for 2030. We have also set up a modern plant to process 5,300 tons of waste per day. We have also set up modern technology to monitor and control pollution. We have also enacted a number of legislations to recycle wastes. Our country has witnessed the signing by 18 countries the Global Dryland Alliance in October 2017. We also called for modern studies based on modern technology to live up to the needs of member countries in the fields of energy, water, agriculture, as well as food security. We believe in all efforts aimed at protecting and preserving the environment and combating pollution. In conclusion, I would like to thank all those who have contributed to the organization of this session. We wish this session all success with a view to ridding our country, our planet, of pollution. Thank you.
May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Anura Disayanake, Head of Delegation, Sri Lanka. Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellency, President of Assembly, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Mr. Chair, the Assembly as apex body determines global policy on the environment and has chosen timely and relevant theme collective deliberations in this year towards pollution-free planet. Indeed, the adoption of a political declaration on pollution as the outcome of this Assembly will strengthen the nation's commitments adherent to international undertakings and end air, land and sea pollution. It will help us to safely manage chemicals and organic waste everywhere. The resolution that have been proposed by the member states to improve on global environmental governance, and the government of Sri Lanka joined other member states to support the resolutions. Mr. Chair, we in Sri Lanka are moving towards the goal of sustainable society with our national commitment under the leadership of His Excellency the President Matthew Palasiris as the Minister of Environment. After signing the Paris Agreement, each successive year, our government has introduced progressive environmental policies, culminating to formulation of national budget of 2018 to make an ambitious shift away from the fossil fuel economy to become a circular economy under the theme Blue-Green Enterprise Sri Lanka. Even our National Climate Change Adaptation Plan for 2016 to 2025 has been developed in line with the guidelines set forth by the UNFCCC, and it is a major step forward in achieving national objectives by minimizing impacts of climate change on human life, ecosystems, natural assets, and the economy. To protect our citizens from the health hazard posed by excessive use of agrochemicals, pesticides, and weedicides in agriculture, the government launched a toxic-free nation initiative 2 years ago and succeeded in encouraging organic farms and responsible agricultural practices. The government of Sri Lanka is exploring the possibility of creating collaborations and exchange with competent international and national institutions, and we are making every effort to exchange scientific and best practice experiences in the field of soil management to increase soil fertility and land productivity. As a signatory to the United Nations Convention for Combating Desertification, we reaffirm our commitment to sustainable development goals to achieve land degradation neutrality by 2024. Mr. Chair, Sri Lanka ratified the Minamata Convention on Mercury this year in June as the 60th country. Actions have been taken to phase out mercury-containing instruments in health sector, education sector, and the jewelry industry. Further, the government of Sri Lanka is in the process of ratifying the Kigali Amendment of the Montreal Protocol to phase down the production of and consumption of hydrocarbons, which are potential global warming substances. This Assembly would be glad to know that Sri Lanka is one of the few countries that has improved the quality of air in urban areas. Because of our bold decisions that we took to improve the quality of diesel for vehicles have led to free gasoline since 2002 and striving to achieve Euro 4 standard by 2020. Mr. Chair, we are acutely aware of the risks posed to our coastline from the busy east-west sea line that locate within our southern territorial waters. The government of Sri Lanka, with other South Asian countries, is in the process of implementing a South Asia oil spilling contingency plan. With blue whales and other rare marine mammal species making the home around our coast, the Sri Lanka is a biodiversity hotspot that needs urgent action. The Assembly will be happy to hear that Sri Lanka has banned the use of polythene products, including oxo-biodegradable plastics and extended polystyrene this year, because our commitment to protect our oceans. Sri Lanka has embarked on an ambitious effort to add 200,000 hectares of new green cover as part of our commitment to Bond Challenge. In conclusion, on behalf of the government of Sri Lanka, I wish to extend our appreciation to UNEP for continued support given to Sri Lanka to manage its environmental and natural resources.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you. Thank you for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Roald Lapierre, Head of Delegation, Netherlands. His Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President and Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. Let me first of all take the opportunity to thank the government of Kenya for hosting this third United Nations Environmental Assembly, and also extend our sincere appreciation to the Executive Director, Mr. Erik Solheim, as well as the Secretariat for all the fine work they've done in preparation of this meeting. This year's theme, Towards a Pollution-Free Planet, addresses some of the most pressing issues we are currently facing. Pollution affects every single living being on this planet. To beat or not to beat pollution is the very question we're all facing. We all know that action will be required by all relevant stakeholders to beat pollution. Let's work together in finding solutions while creating opportunities for new jobs, sustainable economic growth, and better health for all. A successful UNEA goes beyond adapting the ministerial declaration, resolutions or decisions. In 5 years' time, we need to be able to celebrate UNEA-3, to celebrate this very meeting as the launch of a truly global offensive against pollution. And in this respect, Mr. President, I would like to show our continued support to your efforts in leading an inclusive and transparent process towards a ministerial outcome document that we hope can be adopted by consensus tomorrow. Beating pollution requires collaboration, experimentation, and innovation. We will engage with relevant countries and the private sector on greening our economies. And in this regard, I would like to say that we're very proud to be hosting the Global Center of Excellence on Climate Adaptation. With the United Nations, with UN Environment and other countries and parties, we're working on further expanding this Global Center of Excellence on Climate Adaptation in the months and years to come. Mr. President, in concluding, the Netherlands remains very committed to beat pollution and work with all of you towards a pollution-free planet. Thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Excellency. May I now call on Excellency Wilfred Derry, Head of Delegation, Monaco. Excellency, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président.
President of UNEA, Executive Director of UN Environment, Ministers, Ambassadors, dear colleagues. Pollution in all its forms is a universal scourge which we have created and which threatens the lives of thousands of people every day. People are not the only ones to be affected. Pollution leads to the death of thousands of species, in particular migratory species, which are essential to the balance of our planet. For example, more than 1 million marine birds and more than 100,000 marine mammals are the victims of plastic waste every year. Our entire planet is affected. That's why the fight against pollution needs to be carried out at all levels and for our entire ecosystem. This fight must be carried out jointly by states, international organizations, civil society and economic actors. As noted in your report, Executive Director, it is now time to implement a global approach, that of One World, One Health. We must urgently step up targeted scientific research to increase our knowledge and implement the measures required to fight against this scourge. That is why the Principality of Monaco would like to thank you, Mr. Solheim, for this report, which sets out an important action framework and a solid foundation in order to combat pollution. Present climate change exacerbates economic, social, and environmental impacts of pollution. Monaco is convinced that the effective implementation of the Paris Agreement will have a positive impact, in particular on the health of our planet and the health of our populations. It is therefore essential to promote mitigation and adaptation actions which generate direct joint benefits on health, both the health of people and ecosystems. Monaco, for several years now, has been supporting the work carried out by the WHO in terms of protecting people's health in the face of climate change and atmospheric pollution. This cooperation has been added to by the appointment of the Scientific Centre of Monaco and its Human Health Hub as a collaboration centre of the WHO for Health and Sustainable Development. We are implementing a proactive approach in order to limit the various sources of pollution. For example, this policy leads to the strong promotion of public transport, the implementation of traffic plans, adapted transport flows, and development of mechanized public links. In addition, we have the acquisition of clean vehicles. President, the Principality of Monaco is a state naturally turned towards the sea due to its geographical location, and is particularly convinced that immediate measures are necessary to counter the harmful effects of marine pollution. Indeed, marine waste and microplastics are one of the greatest threats to our oceans and seas. At national level, I would highlight the following measures. The fact that we are phasing out plastic bags since the start of the year. So, from 2020, all disposable kitchen utensils will also be banned. We are changing our consumption modes and patterns in order to reduce waste as well. Finally, President, the Principality of Monaco would like to reiterate its support to the implementation of SDG 14. It welcomes the adoption of the Call for Action Declaration during the United Nations conference on this, which urges states to take necessary measures to fight against all sources of pollution. UN Environment has played a major role and will need to play a major role in the implementation of this call for action.
Thank you for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Dr. T. Suka Mangisi, Head of Delegation, Tonga. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. President, allow me to congratulate you at the outset on your assumption of the presidency, and let me assure you of my delegation's full support. We align our statement with those delivered by Pakistan as chair of G77 in China, and Oman as chair of the Asia-Pacific Group. Mr. President, the Kingdom of Tonga wishes to highlight 6 points. 1, we welcome and endorse the theme of this session towards a pollution-free planet. It is timely and relevant in light of the persistent and continuing effects and impacts of pollution that detrimentally affects the health and well-being of our people and our planet. 2, the interconnected nature of our planet and its various ecosystems calls for integrated global, regional, and national actions to combat the scourge of pollution. We take note of the proposed framework by the Executive Secretary in his report in that regard. 3, as a small island developing state, the Kingdom of Tonga is greatly dependent on a healthy natural environment, particularly that of the ocean. However, the ever-increasing pace of economic and technological advancements has brought about various forms of pollution, resulting in detrimental impacts to our land and our ocean, which further compounds many other stresses, such as climate change, on Tonga's environment. 4, we recognize the strategic and synergistic implementation of existing national, regional, and international frameworks, including the 2030 Agenda, the Paris Agreement, the Samoa Pathway, the Call for Action Outcome Document of the UN Ocean Conference, and the Clean Pacific Strategy 2025 as vital in advancing our efforts to beat pollution in all its forms. 5, we are of the view that the development of new frameworks to address gaps in existing frameworks on pollution is vital to ensure all forms of pollution are addressed. In so saying, we we wish to highlight current developments under international law, such as the development of an internationally legally binding instrument to address the conservation and sustainable use of the biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction, and the development of exploitation regulations by the International Seabed Authority to set out appropriate actions to address plumes resulting from seabed mining. And finally, 6, the capacity to address these various forms of pollution remains a challenge for us due to our limited resources. The continuation of existing and the development of new forms of assistance through genuine and durable partnerships with development partners, amongst many others, is vital in enhancing Tonga's effort to beat pollution to attain a pollution-free Tonga and thereby contributing towards a pollution-free planet. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Yasuo Takahashi, Vice Minister, Japan. Excellency, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, honorable ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to give an address here on behalf of the government of Japan. The theme of this assembly, towards a pollution-free planet, is the biggest challenge facing humanity today. Japan experienced severe industrial pollution, such as Minamata disease, during the past rapid industrialization and overcame it. I believe that our experience can provide beneficial lessons for the world's sustainable development. Now, I would like to underline 5 areas that Japan regards important towards a pollution-free planet. First, Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, are very important for all countries because they indicate the actions and objectives toward 2030. The government of Japan adopted the SDGs implementation guiding principle in December 2016 under the leadership of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and it hopes to simultaneously resolve multiple challenges pertaining not only to the environment, but also to economic and social issues by taking the required action promptly. Especially in Asia, air pollution such as PM2.5 has become a critical problem together with rapid economic growth. It is important to share the scientific evaluation and solutions based on it within the region while aiming to enhance the scientific knowledge. Japan will continue to address the air pollution problems in cooperation with other countries through regional frameworks such as the Asia-Pacific Clean Air Partnership, APCAP. Addressing marine litter problems is also important. Japan is actively participating in the Northwest Pacific Action Plan, NOPAP. Also, under the framework of G7 and G20, Japan is promoting actions towards harmonizing the monitoring methodologies of microplastics internationally. We will continue to share these outcomes of our efforts widely with international society, including the UNEP, UN Environment. The Minamata Convention on Mercury. This year, the Minamata Convention on Mercury entered into force. This is a big step forward in the efforts to achieve a pollution-free planet. And it is crucial that many more countries participate in the convention to make steady steps forward in the fight against mercury problems. Japan will further make contributions to this issue by utilizing all the knowledge and the resources we have while cooperating with the international agencies. Last but not least, improving the environmental infrastructure is very important because it can help developed countries avoid industrial pollutions caused by the rapid urbanization and economic growth and meet the high level of needs in waste management at the same time. The Ministry of the Environment, Japan, released the basic strategy of environmental infrastructure for overseas development in July this year. Japan will exert all efforts to support countries for promoting the introduction of environmental infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, Environmental pollution is a problem that we must solve, but it is also a chance to make economic growth and innovation happen if we address it. Like the principle of SDGs, we must aim to solve problems of our environment, economy, and society at the same time. Japan has advanced the technologies and know-how accumulated through our experiences in overcoming the difficult times of industrial pollution. We hope that many more countries take advantage of our technologies and experiences. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, His Excellency, for your statement. May I now invite Her Excellency Dr. Pindi Chana, Head of Delegation, Tanzania.
Mr. President, first of all, I bring you greetings from the President of United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, and the government and the people of Tanzania. Mr. President, today the world's Minister of Environment are gathered for the third session of the United Nations Environment Assembly to discuss the path towards a pollution-free planet. We welcome the progress that has been made by the international community to reduce pollution. We need to drastically accelerate our effort if we want to secure a pollution-free planet for our ecosystem and our people. We commit to working with all stakeholders to explore and implement every possible solution to prevent and control pollution in all areas, namely air, land, soil, fresh water, and oceans. Mr. President, in response to the serious and growing impact of pollution and its cross-border nature, the government of United Republic of Tanzania has ratified and is committed in implementing several multilateral environmental agreement and regional agreement aimed at addressing the aspect of the threat posed by pollution. Like in many of the developing countries, in Tanzania, environmental pollution has significant negative effect on the quality of water, air, land, and on the quality of life in general. In response to the challenges posed by pollution in Tanzania, several policies, legislation, programs, and strategies have been put in place. These include National Environment Policy of 1997, which currently is under review, and the Environmental Management Act of 2004, and its regulation on environmental pollution control, which include air, water, soil quality regulation, solid waste management, hazardous wastewater management, and noise and vibration regulations. The government continues to strengthen national capacity for effective control of environment pollution, promote cleaner production technologies in all socio-economic sectors, strengthen enforcement of relevant legislation and environmental quality standards, promote stakeholders' participation in control of environment pollution, and promote integrated land use planning in urban development. Mr. President, it is an undeniable fact that UNEP support has played a critical role in facilitating Tanzania and other developing countries to meet their obligation related to control environment pollution. The continued request for developing countries, and in particular African countries, including Tanzania, is the need to ensure that considerable technical and financial support is extended in our undertake various pollution programs. We therefore urge UNEA through UNEP and other development partners to continue developing technical and financial support to implement the resolution of the Assembly. Mr. President, friends and colleagues, in conclusion, Tanzania will continue to participate actively in all regional and global process and effort to promote environmentally sound management of all kinds of waste. We will also continue to honor our obligation and commitment to multilateral agreement to which we are party. The future of generation will judge us by whatever decision we take today. Therefore, let us act responsibly. It can be done. Let's play our part. Once again, I thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Ambassador Saleh Al-Harti, Head of Delegation, Arab Group. Excellency, you have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate heads of delegations, may the peace and the blessings of God be upon you all. At the outset, and on behalf of the members of the Arab Group, I would like to thank you all for having invited us to participate in the assembly. I also thank the government of Kenya for hosting the works of this assembly, and we would like to thank them for their warm welcome and their contribution to the success of this session. In our meeting on the morning of Monday, our Arab group adopted a number of recommendations. It valued the efforts and the role played by the President of the Assembly in his presidency of the Assembly and in preparing the ministerial declaration. This represents a message to raise our awareness of the importance of preserving and protecting the environment. The Arab Group also highlighted the role played by the Executive Director of UNEP and commended his efforts and his leadership in addressing the various themes at the table of discussion of this meeting. Our group would like to avail itself of this opportunity to express its willingness to cooperate with him to bring the works of our assembly towards complete success. It is important that this meeting achieve the success that it deserves to achieve. This is an important international gathering. The Arab Group would like to thank all the friendly countries who have adopted initiatives to limit the pollution and to protect the environment. The Arab Group expresses its commitment to providing support to UNEP and to strengthen its role in providing support for the governments and the countries in the field of protecting their environment. We also highly value the efforts by Sudan in its efforts to clean the environment and to limit the effects of armed conflicts and terrorism. We also express support for Lebanon to address the damage caused by the pollution in the Mediterranean due to all oil spills and the damage incurred by its power plants in 2006. We also express support for Lebanon and Jordan to meet the burden of hosting the continued flow of Syrian refugees. We also provide support for all other Arab countries in the protection and preservation of the environment and implementing the environment-friendly projects. We also would like to thank Mr. Solheim for all his efforts that brought us together here and particularly to come to a consensus to helping the Palestinian Authority in combating the effect of the climate change in the occupied territories. Thank you.
His Excellency, thank you for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Bright Kumwembe, Head of Delegation, Malawi. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Government of the Republic of Malawi, I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to the UN Environment for convening this important assembly under the theme towards a pollution-free environment in this beautiful city of Nairobi. At that point, let me also extend our sincere appreciation for the warm welcome and hospitality that has been extended to us by the people of Kenya. Mr. President, recognizing the importance of this assembly in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, Malawi reaffirms its support to the UN environment in its efforts to ensure a pollution-free planet. Pollution is one of the biggest challenges faced by the world today. It is the largest cause of disease and premature death in the world, accounting for 3 times more deaths in 2015 than AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined, and threatens the continuing survival of human societies, according to the 2015 report published by the Lancet Commission on Pollution and Health. Malawi has not been spared from pollution, population growth, rapid urbanization, increasing industrialization, rising incomes, and a more sophisticated form of consumerism, which are leading to an increase in the amount of toxic waste, especially in the cities. Malawi faces challenges in managing this waste and pollution generally due to inadequate and poor infrastructure, low awareness, limited human and financial resources, as well as poor coordination among stakeholders. This results in pollution of water, borders, soil, land, and air, including global warming. Our recently adopted Climate Change Management Policy 2016 has prioritized population growth as one of the key cross-cutting issues to be managed if we are not to overcome the environmental challenges that are currently facing the country. Mr. President, I would like to assure you that Malawi is committed to the protection and management of the environment and the conservation and sustainable utilization of natural resources. Recognizing that pollution does not respect national boundaries and requires concerted efforts and global action to mitigate it, Malawi ratified key multilateral environmental agreements and has furthermore established bilateral and regional partnerships in the management of transboundary movement of waste, as well as curbing air pollution in the form of greenhouse gases and also intervening substances. Realizing the need for private sector involvement in the battle against environmental pollution, Malawi is pressing to promote the concept of green economy and to pursue a low-emission development pathway by stimulating eco-entrepreneurship and cross-sector green business models that generate profit and wealth for people, the economy, and the planet. Very key in this pursuit is the promotion of cleaner technologies and industrial processes in strategic sectors such as renewable energy and waste management. Malawi is committed to reducing pollution at all levels, and currently Malawi has managed to achieve the following: elimination of leaded petrol, banned the importation of POPs, banned the importation and use of equipment containing ozone-depleting substances, migration to low-sulfur diesel, that is 50 ppm from 500 ppm, and introduced a ban on importation, manufacture, trade, and use of thin plastics. In closing, Mr. President, I wish to indicate that as a community that is spearheading issues of environment, let us utilize the power and influence and the mandate that we have in spearheading a mindset change to control pollution so that we can make a pollution-free planet a reality. It all begins with us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you for your statement. May I now call on His Excellency Dr. Sabo Ohana, Head of Delegation, Cambodia. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over the past decade, Cambodia has experienced high growth in industry, urbanization, and agriculture. This has put great pressure on the government, posing great challenges to the society, health, and welfare. Due to our limited financial, technical, and technological resources in environmental management, Cambodia continues to struggle with some of the issues like water pollution, poor solid waste management, and coastal and marine pollution. The Royal Government of Cambodia has taken steps to tackle environmental issues through the formulation, introduction, and implementation of a number of policy and regulation. In fact, Cambodia has established the National Policy on Green Growth 2013-2030 and the National Environmental Strategy and Action Plan 2017-2023 that incorporate fundamental elements of sustainability in the development process. Cambodia also has an interministerial mechanism called the National Council for Sustainable Development to coordinate among 11 ministries and stakeholders to integrate environmental consideration into development plan. Moreover, Cambodia is decentralizing the task of environmental protection, where the subnational level will implement the government policy and enforce law, and the national level will monitor and supervise their implementation and enforcement. In addition, while Cambodia has had a regulation on pollution control, recently special attention has been placed on the production, distribution, use, and recycling of plastic bags and the storage or disposal of the electronic waste. The most anticipated move for Cambodia in tackling pollution is the environmental code. While the code is in drafting process, and it will be soon finalized and submitted to the Parliament after Council of Ministers approval. Contained in the code, better environmental standard and mechanism will be employed and assured. The code will be encouraged of a better framework for green investment and infrastructure. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that determination, collaboration, knowledge generation, and sharing innovation and clean technology are transforming these challenges into opportunity to tackle pollution. The third session of UNEA is a great opportunity for the state representative to meet and share experiences and the best practice. For the cooperation, either in the form of bilateral or multilateral arrangement will be a good option for the country which best practice to share the knowledge and provide technical and financial support to the developing country. Finally, I would like to conclude my statement by reaffirming our commitment to work toward a sustainable planet and a pollution-free planet for present and future coming generations. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, His Excellency. Thank you for your statement. May I now invite His Excellency Dr. Juan Clos, Executive Director, UN Habitat. Dr. Clos, you have the floor.
Very much, Mr. President. It's an honor for UN Habitat to address this assembly. As you know, UN Habitat is the UN agency that, altogether with UN Environment, is hosted here in Nairobi. Therefore, we share the campus and we share most of the themes that we are in charge of. UN Habitat, of course, deals with the urbanization process of the world, and I must say that urbanization continues its acceleration, and it's going to arrive to between 56–57% of the total world population in the forthcoming month. That it's a proof that the continuation of the urbanization is with us, and we need to remember that urbanization is responsible for 70% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the planet. I repeat, 70% of the greenhouse emissions in the planet is related directly to urbanization. Therefore, in the conference that we have had in Quito, UNEA-3, and its outcome document, which is the new urban agenda, we have underlined two basic concepts. One, that urbanization, when it's well done, can be a tool for development. It's not a kind of punishment infringed to the countries, but otherwise, if it's well managed, it can be a tool to accelerate sustainable development. The problem is that it requires attention, it requires political dedication, it requires legislation frameworks, it requires urban planning frameworks, and it requires financial frameworks. At the same time that it can be a tool for development, what we are seeing, unfortunately, in the planet is that the current model of urbanizations continues to be dominated by a spontaneous urbanization. that say the growth of slums. This spontaneous urbanization is not a tool for development. It's a guarantee that more problems are going to be concentrated in unplanned urban areas, and further problems will lie ahead in the agenda of the countries that are suffering this spontaneous urbanization. Of course, the second question that we have addressed in the new urban agenda is the focus in the climate change and urbanization. Both in the developed countries and in the developing countries, immediate and urgent actions are needed to bring urbanization to the path of sustainable development. Transportation, buildings, public space, security, resilience, all those are concepts that need to be embedded in urban planning and management in order to fulfill that we achieve the expected positive outcomes of urbanization. There's not going to be such an outcome if we don't elaborate, and this is my third and final point of the new urban agenda, and we don't encourage member states to develop their national urban policy. If all these difficult questions are not stated in the national urban policy, and therefore the means are there to articulate local, subnational and national governments in these achievements, we cannot expect immediate solutions in this field, because it's very well known that when a rural person, people, moves to a city, its consumption of energy increases tenfold. As that is the case, if we don't act immediately in bringing urbanization to this path of sustainability, we will face much growing difficulties in addressing of the issues of climate change. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Claus. Thank you. Considering that there is time, I propose to the Assembly that we hear from the following speakers: representatives of the Local Authorities Major Group, Science and Technology Major Group, Children and Youth Major Group, Children and Youth Major Group, and Farmers Major Group. I see no objection. Let me now, therefore, invite Ms. Joke Saulige, Minister of Environment of the Flemish Government, representing Local Authorities Major Group. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Excellencies. As a Flemish Minister of the Environment and President of the Network of Regional Governments for Sustainable Development, I deliver this statement on behalf of the Local Authorities Major Group. Pollution requires an inclusive and integrated approach. Local and regional governments are crucial partners in this fight, as we have responsibilities to regulate and control pollution. Moreover, we can design campaigns to raise awareness and promote the engagement of citizenship and local stakeholders. We can help raise the ambition of national and global efforts. As local and regional governments, we are committed to a new mindset, which is ecosystem-based, circular, and preventive of pollution. In this regard, we highlight the following elements. First of all, it is urgent to target action to improve the air quality in cities. Local and regional governments can establish policies to control this. For example, cities and regions are joining the Breathe Life campaign, committing to smart mobility measures, clean public and private transportation. Secondly, we need to strengthen channels for decoherence, coordination and cooperation between all levels of government, especially in less developed cities and regions. This would improve capacities to act on pollution. Thirdly, on data, the stations to monitor water, air and soil quality are often under the responsibility of local and regional governments. This is crucial to identify gaps and improve efficiency. In areas where we lack that data, additional support to sub-national governments would be required to install and manage these stations. Finally, at the UN level, we urge for an integrated approach to pollution. The SDGs, the new urban agenda, and the Paris Agreement all have implications on this topic. UNEA should provide inputs to the high-level political forum. This will secure the delivery of the environmental dimension in 2030 agenda. In conclusion, we would like to propose we strengthen opportunities for showcasing, exchanging and cooperating with sub-national authorities. Specific UN environment projects on this can be key to reduce and prevent pollution. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. May I now invite Mohammed Ali of Gulf Research Center, representing the Science and Technology Major Group. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I deliver this statement on behalf of the Science and Technology Major Group. Science presents clear evidence of the various negative impacts of pollution and the need to act with urgency if we are to have a sustainable future. Yet many governments do not hear or act on this message. We hope that UNEA-3 will provide a number of opportunities to strengthen the science policy interface at local, national, regional, and international levels. While technological innovations are an important part of the solution, they alone will not suffice. Knowledge from across the natural and social sciences are needed to identify, assess, monitor new technologies for their environmental and social impacts, to ensure that proposed solutions are environmentally and socially appropriate. This includes ensuring rapid technology transfer from north to south. We continue to strongly support the GEO6 process and look forward to the global version of the report. In addition, projects like Earth System Governance, Future Earth, and Sustainable Development Solution Networks are just a few other examples of the ongoing scientific research that can also be instrumental in monitoring and setting indicators to address pollution. Briefly, we recommend the following to UNEA-3. Establish a strong environmental governance for all pollution issues, water, land, and so on, with regularly updated legislation, financial incentives, community participation, and data collection and monitoring. More governmental incentives and financial support to research on safer alternative of hazardous chemical with priority to non-chemical alternatives such as agroecological farming. Avoiding false solutions to address pollution issues such as incineration for e-waste and plastic. Professional science alone cannot provide information at the scales and resolution necessary to understand environmental change. The dominant culture of scientific expertise does not account for different ways of knowing and often fails to engage the public. Thus, we strongly support establishing a global citizen science coalition. Citizen science emphasizes collaborative intelligence and co-creation to facilitate scientific and community-based solutions. Citizen science also provides active and meaningful ways to integrate local and indigenous knowledge. Finally, UNEA-3 must ensure the full engagement of the scientific community at global level so that no scientist is left behind. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Excellency. May I now call on Bumi Abanawu of Fade Africa and Leo Verlage of the European Law Students Association who will speak together. You may have the floor, please.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Dear Excellencies and distinguished delegates. I am Bumi Obanawu from Nigeria with my colleague Leo Verlage from Germany, speaking on behalf of the major group of children and youth. Thank you for the opportunity. Now, I would like to recognize the efforts of the UNEA-3 presidency, the member states, the executive director, and the secretariat on the progress made in the last several months, and this last week in Nairobi, and want to address the following. So first off, we express our support for the draft resolution proposed by Iraq on pollution prevention and control in areas affected by terrorism and armed conflicts. We strongly encourage the member states seriously take into consideration the plight of countries which suffer the frontline impacts of pollution caused by conflict and terrorism. We would like to reiterate that this is a resolution about pollution, not terrorism. We, the youth, who are rarely the sources of conflict but suffer the most brunt of the problem, call for solidarity on this issue and request for a consensus on the resolution. Secondly, we also welcome the draft resolution proposed by Mexico on pollution mitigation by mainstreaming biodiversity into key factors. Children and youth organizations around the world are committed and willing to support on the advancement of national biodiversity agendas and remind you that beyond the future leaders of this world, we want to be seen as potential partners for the implementation of these decisions at the national and local levels. Thirdly, we are aware of the ongoing discussions about the engagement of stakeholders who come from different financial backgrounds and interests. In the past, UNEP has set precedents for how it engages with civil society, and we want to encourage that we develop on the same principles of having good faith actors on board. Fourthly, the impunity in the cases of environmentalists murdered in the world is alarming, with the figures increasing every year, especially in Latin America and Asia Pacific. We urge the member states to create policies for protection of environmental defenders.
Lastly, and most importantly, appreciating the hard work invested by member states in UNEA-2 on Resolution 2/3, investing in human capacity for sustainable development through environmental education and training, we reiterate the significance of education in ensuring informed efforts towards saving our planet. Hence, the UNEP MGCY would like to propose having education as a theme for the UNEA-4. The UNEA-2's resolution on education and training was limited to formal education and also suffered the lack of financial capacity that was also highlighted in the report from Executive Director. Many youth-led organizations work on education, capacity building, and addressing the gaps in different education contexts. These efforts need to be supported by the national and local governments. Therefore, we reiterate the proposal for having education as a part of the thematic for UNEA-4. Education is a long-term, indispensable pillar in ensuring effective, informed, and better solutions to the current environmental crisis. Taking this proposal would show that the next generation is important to UNEA. As a Native American proverb goes, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. Let us all move together, stronger. Thank you, dear delegates.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Bunmi. We took note of your recommendations and thank you for your support. Our last but not the least speaker, Mr. Enfin of the Federation of Environmental and Ecological Diversity for Agricultural Revampment and Human Rights of Cameroon, representing the Farmers' Major Group. Mr. Enfin, because of the importance of your sector, the floor is all for you.
The Chair and various Excellencies, thank you. I am presenting for the Farmers' Major Group. I come from Cameroon. I'm called Chabo Bokengo. We the farmers, made 6 recommendations, and we considered pollution of the air, water, land, and soils as adversely affecting the environment, peoples on earth, and livelihood and biodiversity. That over 200,000 workers and farmers die every year due to pesticide poisoning, with 99% of fatalities occurring in developing countries and mainly Many others suffer from cancers, hormonal disruptions, and other chronic effects. Fertilizer and pesticides companies report huge profits at the cost of people and the planet. 2, that agribusiness-driven intensive agriculture and extractive industries within incentives from governments are known to grab land and resources and deny access to land, especially for women and small farmers, indigenous peoples, and other communities. Despite proliferations of platforms and programs, we need more concerted and urgent action on the part of member states to prevent pollution on land and soil. This model of industrial agriculture has been facilitated in developing countries through international and regional institutions. International financial institutions and multilateral trade agreements is not sustainable and accentuates pollution of air, soil, and water. Small farmers, women, and indigenous peoples have been practicing sustainable agriculture through centuries, but now with the introduction of new patent regimes and technologies such as IPRS, communities' resources, particularly seeds, are being commodified by TNCS, making it difficult for small farmers to access these resources. More than environmental pollution these days, these issues need to be looked from the human rights perspective. Marginalized communities bear disproportionate burden of disposition and disease due to pollution. State must prevent and stop the killing of. State must prevent and stop the killing and enforce disappearance of land and environmental defenders who are relentlessly fighting to save the Mother Earth and penalize their perpetrators, and ensure effective mechanisms and laws to prevent disposition of land, territories, and resources. 6, and the last, member states must ban and phase out the highly hazardous pesticides, set up processes to elaborate on comprehensive legally binding documents on HAPs, advance agroecology and natural farming that builds on farmers, women, and indigenous people, experience and support by science, stop the land grabbing by corporations and the use of GMOs, that is another pollutant, and support the Human Rights Council's ongoing discussion on elaborative and legally binding treaties on TNCs and other business enterprises with respect to human rights. Thank you very much, My Excellency.
Thank you, Enfin. Thank you. We have now concluded our list of speakers for this session. We will adjourn the session and continue the national statements tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the same room. For the moment, allow me to invite the Secretariat to make housekeeping announcements.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to all the speakers who have provided very valuable insights today on the theme of the high-level segment. I just have a few announcements to make, perhaps starting with the information that the Committee of the Whole will convene in this room immediately after the adjournment of the session. Very importantly, delegates are invited to attend the multi-stakeholder dialogue, which will start at 6:30 in conference room 1, just across the hallway. The theme of the multi-stakeholder dialogue is people and pollution. You'll have the chance to listen to different perspectives, different voices, and we are truly waiting for an interactive dialogue between decision makers, stakeholder organizations, international organizations, and even private individuals. 2 other very important events, especially around the topic of finance, will take place. The first one in conference room 11, the Green Climate Fund event, organized by our partners of the Green Climate Fund, at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. in conference room 11. You're cordially invited. And you're also very cordially invited to the event that also the World Bank is organizing on finance for pollution management, which will take place in the VIP lounge, which is up the stairs here by the roundabout, from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. There are many opportunities, still many ideas that you can take advantage for. And Mr. Chair, I have nothing else to add but to thank you for presiding over this session.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Excellencies. I declare the meeting adjourned.